Jesus explains, the bondage of the soul. Your intercession helps to redeem captive souls. June 12, 1940, message 1468, from Jesus through Bertha Dudde, spoken by Pascal. It is irresponsible to treat the human soul in such a way that it is kept in a certain bondage, that is, when it is hindered in its continued development. And this is the case when the human will turns exclusively towards the material, when this will is weakened by the adversary, and the soul is thus no longer able to express itself freely and unbound. This lack of freedom of will, however, is again their own fault. It is the consequence of self-conceit, which prevents the people from turning to God in prayer for strength. In short, a consequence of earthly life without prayer. For at the beginning of his earthly mission, man was granted free will, which could lead him to both good and evil. But he may also make use of prayer. He is free at any time to ask for help, and if he makes use of this prayer, the strength to resist also grows. Thus, the will is truly free and not bound by the power of my adversary. Those who live without prayer will be able to muster ever less resistance. Thus, they surrender themselves to the forces that seek to harm them, and the result is that their souls fall into a state of complete bondage, that they are bound to the earth, that they always do and desire whatever evil forces command them to do. A bondage from which they can hardly free themselves, even if they do not yet make use of prayer, for they have also lost the knowledge of the grace of prayer. They are completely without help and exposed to the influence of evil, because they can no longer use their will in the proper way. A will such as this, so misguided, can only be effectively countered by love. If a loving being on earth, or even in the beyond, comes to the aid of such a compelled soul, and thus sends up a prayer to God in its stead, the bonds of that soul will loosen. It will suddenly feel the power of resistance within itself, and willingly surrender to better forces. And this can bring about a transformation in its thinking and willing, which is expressed in a changed way of life. Souls who can no longer find their way back to God on their own must receive a supply of willpower through loving intercession if they are not to be irretrievably lost, since they cannot be compelled to think or will differently. This intercession is a weapon that effectively combats my adversary, for it nullifies his exclusive power over the soul. The soul feels its bonds loosening, and now the will within it is stirred to escape this stranglehold entirely. It feels weak, yet it desires help, which may now be offered to it. For the desire for help is an unconscious prayer that is answered, and that the beings of light who wish to assist it now direct the thoughts in such a way that the soul in question now makes conscious use of prayer, and thus increases the strength to resist, and can therefore free itself from the state of bondage. Thus, the love of a fellow man can contribute immensely to the salvation of a straying soul, if it takes into account the weakened will, and, for its part, now allows the will to become active in assisting that soul. The power of prayer for the soul of a human being is immense, and the only means of rescuing it from the influence of the adversary. Amen.